to the degree that you want something is the degree you're afraid of not having.
Yeah. God, I wish I started when I was younger. I go, well, yeah, but you didn't. So shut the fuck up and let's keep going.
Right.
Like you can't.
Nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. Because it's not till then that it's really real. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is way worse than I thought. It's like, oh yeah, it's way, way worse than you thought.
Yeah.
But luckily there's more to you than you think.
How you doing, Raghu?
I'm okay, which doesn't say much of anything. Been a rough month, to say the very least.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were just talking about impermanence before we got on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, been a lot of that, a lot of dealing with more than one plane at a time, you know, the plane of grief. For those of you who don't know, I run Ram Dass's Love Server Member Foundation.
And you knew him for 51 years.
And I knew him for 51 years. Yep, I do. And
well, you're the right person to run the organization.
I don't think that's the qualification many people knew.
Years.
Yeah. So he passed December 22nd. Mm-hmm. And then maybe 2 weeks ago, his Indian brother, the man who, when he first went to India and met Neem Karoli Baba, his guru, our guru, this man was the translator. And Neem Karoli Baba, who we call Maharaji, just a nickname, said, okay, his name was KK. KK, take Ram Dass back, who was Richard Alpert in that moment still, right? Take him back to your house and take care of him. From that moment on to 3 weeks ago, or when Ram Dass left, they were like the most close brothers. There's no word I could put about how close they are. Actually, we just found some letters as we're going through now, and of course collecting all of Ram Dass's letters, memorabilia. And in there was the most profound exchange of love between these two humans. It was just fantastic. It's going to be on ramdass.org on the homepage, excerpts from those letters. They're beautiful. Extraordinary. So he went because he said, I can't stay if he's gone. He actually said that when I called him and told him what happened with Ram Dass.
So in that situation there, it's very interesting when people have this sort of consciousness around passing, because most of us think of death as it just kind of happens accidentally. But you hear cases of this in certain relationships, and this seems like one of those relationships where
happens
someone's
all
like,
the time. Yeah, all the time.
But that in and of itself is a little bit paradigm shattering, because most of us are like afraid. Oh, whoops.
Yeah, right.
But there's, when you reach a certain level of, I suppose, consciousness or whatever you want to call it, you can start to take a little bit more agency over that process potentially.
The other thing that's that's all true, I think. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that's going on, he's been with this KK, Ram Dass's brother from India, Indian brother. He's been with this, realized, he 7 years old, he met Neem Karoli Baba. That was in maybe around early 40s, okay? And all the way, was close to him and the whole thing, right? There's no birth, there's sickness, there's old age, there's death. He knew all of that, like in his soul. So for him to say, hey, I'm checking out. I mean, he didn't say it like that. He said, I have nothing to live for when I called him now. He was acted out on that kind of plane of consciousness. It's the same plane where grief happens, right? But what Ram Dass was all about was, he used to say all the time, you can live on more than one plane of consciousness at the same time. So there's the grief plane, and then there's that other plane where we do understand in some deep part of ourselves that we are not this thing that we're identifying with, and there is an incarnation that repeats in order for us to get it right over a span of time that we could never imagine, and we could never understand this with our mind. So, but that is a something. And, we all know it. I mean, we might know it through psychedelics, right? Mm-hmm. Through a piece of music, a book, something happens that's that ineffable thing that you can't describe. And then you start to trust that thing, which is what happened with me when I first met Ram Dass, oh shit, that's what I've been waiting for to hear all this time.
Yeah.
Truth. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing to realize that and helps you not stay stuck in one or the other. Because you can get stuck in grief. Of course, we all do, right? But on the other level, that other plane of consciousness, you get stuck too much in your head. It's okay. We're all just body. We're not these body. Kind of bypassing.
So it's loving all of the planes of existence that you're in and not being stuck, being fluid.
Yeah.
To be able to access those different planes. So if you're like, look, I'm in this grief thing and it's here, and let's go back to this spiritual plane where the unborn and the undying is real and exists, and I feel that part, and there is no grief in that plane. But it's not ignoring, it's just being able to access yourself on all those planes and doing it with some awareness rather than just, well, I took these mushrooms and I got to here, and now I'm back to, my self-doubt and lack of self-worth and lack of self-love, and I'm back to this plane and I'm stuck, and maybe the mushrooms will liberate me. But the mushrooms can give you, and I think that was a great way that Ram Dass described it, just give you something that can pry you out of this, give you an idea of what's possible. But the ultimate goal is to have the ability to use choice to access yourself on these different levels to a certain degree.
Yeah. But he also used to say the psychedelic experience is a great facsimile of the real deal, but it's still a facsimile. Mm-hmm. Okay,
that fucked me up actually when he was telling about that, because it was true. But like the thing about the psychedelic experience, so you do 5-MeO-DMT, and it feels like for me, this is my personal experience, it feels like you merge with the unicity, but when he was talking, I think it's Astral Fun and Games. That's the podcast that I was listening to. And he's talking about, well, that's a loka, that's a plane of existence where you get to experience what it feels like to feel the unicity, but it's not the actual samadhi. It's not the actual experience of unicity. It's you're accessing the feeling of it, which is still valuable.
Absolutely.
Super valuable.
Absolutely.
But don't confuse it. Yeah. Because then I'm realizing like, yeah, actually, because I was still witnessing myself experience that. Mm-hmm. So I was still watching myself there. I wasn't fully embodying it because I'm still watching myself experience it going, oh, wow.
Yeah, right,
Exactly. Like if I'm really there, I'm not going, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because the oh, wow part is still the me that's experiencing it.
Exactly, yeah. When Ram Dass gave that white lightning acid to Neem Karoli Baba.
Like 1,200 micrograms or something like that?
So it happened twice, 2 different times. The first time he was there, and then when he went back. So the first time it happened,
Were you there for any of those
experiences? No, I was not there for any of them. The first time it happened, nothing happened. But then when Ram Dass went home, he went back to America, he thought, shit, I wonder if maybe it was a sleight of hand, like he threw the things, over his shoulder. I thought they were going in his mouth. He thought this. So then he got doubt. Maybe something, what's going on?
Yeah.
So he goes back the second time. And Krishna Das, who I believe was with him at that time. Maharaji says, do you have any of that yogi medicine? He called it yogi medicine acid. Ram Dass said, yeah, because he was all prepared, because he wanted this to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So he said, well, give me, and he gave him one. No, give me. He gave him a few. Okay, so then he picked each one up in his fingers and stuck his tongue out, put it on his tongue, and swallowed it and said to Ram Dass, did I do that right?
Wow, so he knew.
Yeah, he knew. He knew. Yeah. But anyhow, but more to the point is what he said. This allows you to have, be in the presence of Christ, right? For a couple hours. But then you got to come down. You got to go back better to do it naturally, feed people and love them. That's what he said. So, but we did get the message that it's an opener, obviously, and it's something that helps people understand the absolute integration of everything that is possibly manifest in this universe.
Yeah, sure. You know, that idea of using these experiences to just open you up to other experiences has been something that's radically shifted my life, because I just spent time, and we haven't gotten to talk about my recent journeys.
Yeah.
Maybe you followed along.
I followed a little.
But I spent time 6 days, like pretty much a full week, in absolute darkness and silence, you know, pitch black, like jet black darkness. And it was the most powerful journey
I
I've
saw
ever.
you in an ice bath, and I'm going, what the fuck?
Yeah, so I was underwater in an ice bath. All that stuff is, you know, that's all fun, challenging but fun. But then the darkness was the real medicine. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from that was something that I think Ram Dass's teachings helped put me together, which was understanding that my mom, to me, is the closest person that I've ever known to provide unconditional love. What a blessing that's
Beyond
my
baby.
mom. Now still, consistently, through my whole 38-year life. Like, people ask my mom, and I've told this story before on the podcast, but I'll tell it again. People, you know, I have some success now. You know, I've done some things, and people will come up to my mom and say, "Oh, aren't you so proud of Aubrey?" And she'll just look at him like with a puzzled look on her face and go, "What do you mean? I've always been proud of Aubrey." Like, it's like it's the closest that, and obviously there's different, you know, ways that someone like Neem Karoli Baba can reach this state of unconditional love and on the spiritual plane. But as far as like from a human perspective, it's been the purest love that I could ever feel. And same with my grandma, right? So beautiful. But I didn't really realize how the potential of me leaning into that love could actually teach me about love. Like, that love, you always think of like, oh, love. Well, I got to find that with someone I'm having sex with, or my girlfriend, or whatever. But just like you and Ram Dass used Neem Karoli Baba's love to show you about love, and Ram Dass talks about it with his dying aunt, and all of these people that he fell in love with, but rose to the state of love, that actualization of love, with any variety of people, which can then be the thing that informs us about love.
I don't think there's anything whatsoever. You made a difference between that unconditional love from your mother and your grandmother and the kind of unconditional love that exists in a Neem Karoli Baba body. It's not. It's the same thing. There's no difference whatsoever. There can only be one thing going on. There can't be two things going on. Absolutely. So there is no difference. Absolutely no difference whatsoever.
Man.
You know? I mean, it's that place where it's a one-way street. That was now, I did not experience that. I mean, I had a really incredible aunt. I don't remember my mother. I remember my aunt, who was that for me when I was more a baby or young kid. But, you know, when I first met that thing, and I call it a thing because the first thing that happened meeting Neem Karoli Baba was I realized it was a one-way street. I was not having this kind of a dialogue, or the kind of dialogue we have with any human. There's a bit of jousting, you know, and it could be in good spirit, but there's a two. The two is going on. In this case, it's only a one, and you're just in that field. And that the unconditionality of it, the way in which nothing was wanted in return, right? And that's the same thing you're talking about.
It's like even just hearing you say it makes me emotional to realize that that's been something that's been there, and I've been blind to it to a certain degree. I've known it's there, but I haven't known the power of it, and also. There was some part of me that didn't feel worthy of receiving it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I didn't quite feel worthy of receiving it. So I let it come in skin deep, and every once in a while get a little deeper. But I was like, I don't deserve that. Like the story of Ram Dass when he first, you know, when Maharaji says, love everyone, tell the truth. It's like, I got too many judgments. I got all these things. Like, I don't deserve that love. I'm not ready. I shouldn't be loved.
No, you said I
unconditionally.
can't. I cannot love everyone and tell the truth. I mean, think of that. Think of us doing that, right? Telling the truth, but you can do it in a way that the other person isn't going to be hurt. That's extraordinarily difficult. So, and certainly difficult when you're identifying with your story, right?
Yeah.
Which is you identifying with your story. I am not good enough to receive this thing.
This unconditional love.
My day-to-day when I first met Neem Karoli Baba, that was my day-to-day. Okay, he's going to throw me the fuck out of here because I'm such a piece of shit. I can't even, I waited. It didn't happen, but thank God. But yeah, that's just the stories that we're telling ourselves. It's something else, believing in these thoughts, right?
It really is, and I think that's such a beautiful and kind thing that you said that actually strengthens this so much, because Ram Dass talks about the guru, and we're in a time now where guru isn't really something that we identify with, right? Like it's not a time. It's almost like not even the era of guru, to a strange degree.
I don't know about that. I mean, it is true, and I've been saying what you've been saying, but I'm countering myself.
Okay.
Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Vietnamese.
I do, yeah.
He said, the next Buddha is the Sangha. The next Guru is the Satsang, the community of like-minded souls. Right? That's what.
So the Guru has shifted.
No, it's saying, for us, what Ram Dass, for instance, who, although never called himself a guru, and anybody who called him a guru, he said, I am not a guru. Neem Karoli Baba is a guru. But he would say, here we are together. Like we'd be in Maui. I wish you would have come there one of these times.
Yeah.
And the way that we shared that heart is exactly what you're describing with your mother. But we felt good about ourselves because of so many of us were there. That's what satsang is. It supports that place. Whereas if you're all alone, you get lost in your identity and your story and everything, and you do what you did, which didn't do anything. Your mother didn't stop, right? She kept doing it, no matter what you did, which is the whole point of the thing. And that's the satsang reflects the nature of that one thing, which is that selfless love. It's a shit word too, love.
And that's I think it's like reframe. Well, there's barnacles on all these words: God, love, everything. Right. It's like a whale that's been swimming for so long that it's all barnacles, and you can hardly see that it's a beautiful blue whale underneath it. But you're just so lost in all the things that have been attached to it. But thinking of the guru in a variety of different ways, besides it being just one person, which you guys got to experience that in a person, which was Maharaji, but thinking that, okay, my mom and the way that she loves me, that's guru. And like the community, even that community, the little community that we formed in Poland, going through the ice, and it was just a band of brothers who were doing extreme things and supporting each other, like the radical support for everybody. Like there was one of our brothers there, Humble the poet, who didn't even know how to swim.
Humble the poet was there?
Yeah.
Oh, I know him.
You know him?
Yeah, I did a podcast with him. He's great.
He doesn't know how to swim. Oh, and he jumped into a frozen waterfall, and all of us were there to support him. He wouldn't have jumped into a frozen waterfall on his own, but because all of our brothers were there, and there would have been 12 other people, if he had any difficulty, all 12 of us would have jumped in there, and it was like that community created a sense of love and support where no matter what anybody was doing, whether they went 15 seconds in the water or they went 3 minutes in the water, it didn't matter. It was just like supporting. That was a kind of a satsang. It was kind of a community where it was.
Yeah. This is what Ram Dass brought back. When he left, one thing I posted was, Ram Dass has brought us the kind of mixture of like a satsang, like one-pointed, one-minded people. Okay, just one mind. But family adds another dimension to that. Just makes it, there's a warmth to it, when you just hear that word, you feel comfy. I feel safe now, and I'm family is here. And then it extends out to strangers you don't necessarily know, except that they're all wanting what you want, is to share that heart space, right? So he brought that back in spades, you know. Yeah. And it's all and you know, we're, as you can imagine, getting tremendous influx over the last month from everybody around the world, and the publicity on it was extraordinary. I didn't know quite. Wow, you know, it just was just a tsunami. And we even put an email address where they could write to tell their story. Like immediately, like 1,000 people. Just out of it, we're actually now taking it and going, well, we'll put a little book together, Remarkable Encounters with Ram Dass, it'll be called. Wow. And, you know, just that's more of people sharing. And everybody was like, you know, it was a big, hey, keep this going, because since he left, I can feel him around when I'm just with other people and we're just talking about him or it or whatever. And, you know, so Ram Dass gives the kind of extraordinary motivation, for me in particular, to do this rather than go off to India and find a cave somewhere, which I have thought of in the last month, let me tell you, when it was just, okay. In India, they say, "Bas ho gaya," enough already. You know, I've reached my max quota of dukkha, suffering.
Yeah, I think that idea that everything that he really was, the essence of him, while his body left, the essence of him that lives on through everything that we're so fortunate that was captured, all the speeches, all the talks, the physical encounters, everything that is going to live on forever and may actually grow and should and will. It is for me. I mean, I'm someone who's been on this path, and I came to his teachings later than many, you know, but there's many who haven't even started, and it's just interesting how it's continuing to blossom, you know, just hearing him talk and like reading his work and like understanding, and then meeting people who've met him, and it's a beautiful thing that you realize that even though his body is no longer here, who he is, Ram Dass is here. Yeah, he's here,
and it's more than one level. It's the level, as you said. All of these talks are recorded, and it's extraordinary. I think we have in the library over 15,000 titles of one guy. Okay, so we do have all of that, and it's, to me, and the first time I heard him I was running a radio station as a kid, and 22, 3-year-old in Montreal, where I'm from, and they asked me to promote his. I'm telling you a story, you didn't ask for it, but it'll have a point, okay? And they asked me to promote him, doing a lecture at McGill University. So I said, like, who's that? You know, and they went, oh, Alpert and Leary. Oh, yes, we love them. Send me over a tape. And they sent me a tape of a previous talk. And I went in the studio and I listened to this thing, and that was a demarcation point in my life. Okay. He had a way of transmitting that kind of knowledge because of his psychological brain, professor, all that. And his way, he would absorb many different things, even though, because with Neem Karoli Baba, when he met him, he was Hindu. When I first went there, all he talked about was Christ. So he was not, and I'm Jewish, so it was not, what? So, Ram Dass just had a smorgasbord of traditions that he absorbed and then translated to us in the West in a way that we get it. Easier than just about anybody. I mean, people love Alan Watts, and he's in that kind of same tradition of being able to transmit, for him, more the Zen thing. That's not going anywhere. People have access, right? Be here now, take some acid, and then, Ram Dass, let me listen to, and we are making it more and more accessible and more easily findable, whatever it is you want, because he covered all of the gamut of subjects, that would help. But there's another level, the level of behind him and behind us all, and this is it's sounding woohoo as I say it, but Neem Karoli Baba, that thing, whatever that is, and I really don't know what that is. I met it in a body, had a personality, and did all this
Threw
stuff.
apples at people?
Yeah.
It
yeah,
played
and
around?
called them awful names as well. I mean, he had a mouth, right? But I can't tell you what it is, except, I mean, I don't know. I guess the grand intelligence decides to manifest some part of itself in order to do something that we have no idea about. In this case, a bunch of us were there, and we all came back to America and are doing different things that maybe, people are gravitating towards that make sense for them and have opened their lives up in a way that, so I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of, because otherwise we were the kind of people who you needed to be hit over the head with a hammer to get through. Yes, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your body. Okay? Stop. And we stopped. And then from there, we were able to absorb, as Ram Dass is the biggest great example of it, absorb all of these traditions, as I said, and be able to elucidate it so that you can practically change your perspective. And without changing perspective, we are lost. If we continue to think that the brain, which, the intellect in the West, I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
Sure.
It gives us a little bit of a leverage to get out of that. That's why his last thing, Ram Dass, was all about, move to loving awareness in the center of your chest. Just move out of your ego mind. Take some deep breaths into the center of your chest. I am loving awareness. Mm-hmm. I am not this judging mind that takes off on a whim and takes us for a ride, right?
Yeah.
And once that happens, life gets way better.
Oh, yeah.
That is true.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the things that I love when I hear the stories of Neem Karoli Baba is his seeming playfulness, and to me, that's the signature. I've always said you can tell a spiritual master by the sound of their laughter. Like if you're not laughing, I don't think you quite got it. I don't think you quite got that this is fun. Yes, it can be serious, and you can get to that plane where everything is very serious and it's all life or death, but it's also fun. It's like we're here to like experience and enjoy. And I actually had an encounter with, in the darkness, you start to see visions that are as strong as any ayahuasca I've taken. Maybe not peak ayahuasca or DMT, but like DMT, like intense visions. And I had an encounter, and I've never had an encounter with Buddha before. Wow. So Buddha comes, shining golden. I'm not Buddhist, but there's probably Buddhas in this house we're recording in, right?
Well, you love the Buddha.
But I love Buddha. Who doesn't love Buddha? So I see Buddha. I was like, whoa, Buddha. Wow. And Buddha was smiling. And I said, Buddha, why are you smiling? And Buddha says, why aren't you smiling? And I go, oh yeah. And then I see Buddha laughing. And I go, Buddha, why are you laughing? He goes, why aren't you laughing? And then we just looked at each other for a minute, smiling and laughing, and then Buddha was gone out of my vision space. But it was this idea, like the wisdom that this Buddha, whether perhaps it's my mind, whatever, but didn't feel like that. I always put that caveat out there. It felt like a real encounter, but whatever. But the wisdom was very simple. Like, I'm smiling and I'm laughing, and you should be too. Mm-hmm. Like if you really get it, if you really get that you're love, you are loving awareness, then you're looking at all these things that are so troublesome and we get so neurotic about and we get so worried about.
And self-serious.
And so self-serious. But you look at Buddha, and Buddha says, why aren't you smiling? Why aren't you laughing? And that's Buddha nature.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and another thing that Ram Dass represents is a sense of humor. Yeah. Right? What did he say in the movie you saw, Becoming Nobody? Yeah. Something like, two things are necessary. You get these two things, you're cool. Love and humor.
That's it.
That's it, right?
That's it.
Yeah, especially about, I mean, the self-serious stuff is really tough, because we're judging ourselves and we're reacting to stuff and polarizing on a moment-to-moment basis, So if you can just put the crowbar of humor, and just get a little bit of leverage, then you see, oh yeah, it's okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Be here now.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Humor. Very important. Humor is very important.
It feels like to me when I look at my own life and I look at myself when I'm the most free, there is a kind of a scoundrelly sense of humor. There's a scoundrelly sense of humor that's like, it's so, and I feel so alive and I feel so free. And it feels like that's my soul. When my soul is really embodying and permeating the self, and I'm identified as that. It's so fun and so funny, but I'm not there that often, but I know when I'm there and it's like, oh yeah, it's all so much. It's all so impossible for the brain to understand that the only logical response is just to laugh and love. Exactly what he was saying.
Yeah. Practice, though, to be able, you say I'm there sometimes. So that's the whole point of practice, is to increase the spaciousness of that sometimes, so that there's moment-to-moment connectivity.
Yeah.
So that's a toughie, because it's difficult for people to, in this day and age especially, right, to just get concentration, where you're focused on one point and your discursive mind isn't as crazy as it normally is, and then it keeps coming down the more you do it. And then that's what insight meditation, the Vipassana thing's all about. Once you get to that point, then you can expand that through this spaciousness, because your mind is not, you're not, gone. Oh, that was 10 minutes, 15 minutes, So, the practice is a big part of this. Big. By the way, you just mentioned the Buddha. And when you said that, okay, this is really crazy to admit this on your podcast. While all this stuff has been going on, the death and this loss and all of it, and the new year, and the responding to so much. It's not just me and the people around me. It's coming from across the world. The grief and the expectation of response and being together. How can we be together? Because I don't want to be alone.
Sure.
A friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a really great series on Netflix. You ought to watch it." I go, "What's that?" She goes, "Buddha." It's a kind of Bollywood Indian TV series depiction of the life of the Buddha, with Indian actors and all of the kind of jewelry and costuming from whenever that 5,000 years ago, whatever it was, whatever they imagine it was. It is so schlocky. I mean, it is corny beyond corny. It's unbelievable. But there's something, I got attached to the Buddha. Like, the Buddha is so powerful. He can even come through this Bollywood schlock of a series and touched me. Maybe it was because I was so bereft.
You were open.
Yeah, I was wide open. I'm telling you, everybody out there, watch it, especially if you're going through anything, because it is so lighthearted. It's got all kinds of adventure, and because Buddha, of course, came from he was the son of the king of an area of India at the time. And it's a fascinating story, how his father kept him from any kind of suffering. No old age, no disease, no nothing. He moved all the old people out of the city. He created another city. And
wow, what a wild myth.
Yeah,
that is.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's not true, but it's like,
I don't know.
It's like a mythological parable of like trying to remove all suffering, and then the reaction to that is to actually embrace and love all suffering, which is the way that you actually remove suffering is backwards from what the Father was doing, but the backwards way that it was trying to be indoctrinated actually probably facilitated the forwards way.
Yeah. When you look at it like that, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
So I love Buddha. I mean, actually, our tradition, if you would call it that, I don't know. But really, Neem Karoli Baba, although he was Hindu, I said before, he talked to us on and on. He went on about Christ. I mean, this is a famous story that I asked him after just being there a few days, like, I figured you meet a Hindu guru, get a mantra. But I didn't say, can you give me a mantra? I said, can you tell me how to meditate? I'll take anything. He said, yeah, meditate like Christ. When he was nailed to the cross, he felt no pain, only love. I'm like, no, I can't even, I don't, I mean, I went to Jewish parochial school, half the subjects in Hebrew, half in English. Do you ever take geography in Hebrew? Think of it, Aubrey.
Wow.
It was horrible. So anyhow, so I had no relationship whatsoever with Christ. So Ram Dass came. He wasn't there. He came the next day. I said, well, you have a convivial relationship with him. You can talk to him. I'm like, Mm-hmm. He goes back the next day. He says, you said meditate like Christ. Well, how did he meditate? So Maharaji just went like this. Closed his eyes, sat back. And we're all sitting around. It was actually Krishnadas, who you know as well, and a few others, just like 5 or 6 young Westerners with Ram Dass. And then tears came from his eyes, and he opened them. And when you're a kid and your parents are crying, you don't know what the hell's going on. We became like that. And he said over and over, he never died. You don't understand. He never died. This is all through a translator, of course. He was lost in love with every sentient being. He never died. And he went on from there. And we all had total experience of what Christ is, the Christ, right, in that moment. And so there was certainly nothing about him being Hindu. He was all about, there's only one thing going. He would say in Hindi, sabek, all one. We'd sit down and he'd go, sabek, like that. Because he did everything like it's a question. Sabek, it's all one, including the Buddha. One day, I went there with Krishnadas. For those of you out there who don't know, and you like chant, find Krishnadas, because he does that quite well, really well. And I took him to see Maharaji because he had a bum knee. He couldn't walk hardly. So he's limping, and I bring him in. And so he wanted to get some help, which he did. I won't go into that part of the story, but Krishnadas had a book, a diary, and in it, he would put pictures of Maharaji and write poems and whatever. He had one thing in it. It was called Mahamudra, one of the great Buddhist texts. Okay, about the oneness of everything, the beyond two, basically. And Maharaji said to the translator, read that. So he started reading it, and then Maharaji said, Tik, yep, that's right on. And then he flipped the page, and there was a picture of him. He said, who's that? And we all, Krishnadas and I went, it's you, ha, ha, ha. He said, Nai, Buddha. And our minds got twisted into the place where, okay, this is not a being that's identified with any of that kind of thing, that we project a guru to be or anything like that. This is coming from a place where there is no differences at all and completely absorbed in that place, which is the non-dual, but in a body, which is extraordinary when you think about it. So the thing that the Buddha represents is that incredible wisdom, right? Discriminating wisdom, do it yourself and see inside. Look inside yourself, right? Self-inquiry. Get in there through practice, through meditative practice, until you realize the truth of Buddha mind. That mixed in with what the other side for us, which was about Hanuman, the monkey god, who is like, he said it was just like, Maharaji would say, Christ and Hanuman are one. Service, love for humanity, right? Same thing. It was just, if you talk about mythology, it's just a different myth. And when you mix those two together, that passionate devotion for absolutely, there's nothing for Hanuman but doing for Ram, God. Nothing but that. And mix that with that wisdom, and it's a kind of a potent brew that. And we've been doing this over in Maui at these retreats with Ram Dass for 15 years. And I now look at it and go, wow, that's something really of value. Because sometimes you can get, in either one of those traditions on their own, the devotional heart thing can get a little bit too, as Trungpa called them, he used to call us loving lighters. He used to call Ram Dass. Trungpa Rinpoche, a great, great Tibetan Lama. And then on the Buddhist side, they can get so crystal clear about the reality that the Buddha presented that you get lost. There's no heart. There's no... Yeah. But when you put those two things together, I think they're really potent. That was quite a speech. Who the fuck is listening to that?
Well, what's interesting to me is you're talking about the oneness of these beings, but the way that we understand them is with different flavors.
Yeah.
And Hanuman has a different flavor. It's all ice cream. I think we kind of get that. Yeah. Like it's all ice cream, but there's the Hanuman flavor, there's the Buddha flavor, and then there's the Christ flavor.
Beauty, isn't it? It's beauty.
That is beautiful. That's beautiful. And I guess that is the way that it works on these multidimensional planes, right? Where it's like, it is all one, and all of us, are part of that one as well. And I think that's the teaching that everyone had, right? Is that we're all a part of that. But it's like realizing there's the part of that, and also loving the particular flavor that the articulations of that one trickles down all the way through the form. Even the fact that Hanuman is a monkey is a flavor. It's just a way that you can taste the one in a slightly different way on your palate. And the way that you can taste the oneness of Christ or taste the oneness of Buddha, it just tickles different taste buds. But it's all the same thing.
How do we respect each other's taste buds? That would be a good thing, right?
That would be a real good thing. Instead of killing each other for which taste buds we fucking prefer.
Yeah. Over thousands of years, this is going on. Odd, isn't it odd? I mean, this is being a human.
So that seems to me like it's a way. The ego, as far as I understand the ego, especially the dark side of the ego is a multiplicity. It's kind of an archetype that I think you can fill in a lot of different things. But the ego, a very big part of it is the idea to know itself relatively and to seek superiority. Right? Like that seems to be a signature of the ego. I know myself relatively to others, and I want to be above those that I know relatively. And I think a lot of all of this war and a lot of all of this strife is that I've found something that my ego can identify with, which is this practice, this flavor, and that makes me superior, which gives me the right to kill, torture, put down anything else, because it just when the ego gets out of control and says like, oh no, now I'm superior and these are the inferior, these are the infidels, this is me. And it's just a way that the ego kind of hijacked the truth, the love.
Power. Okay. That's it. It begins and ends there. And you identify with that, and then you have what we have. And I guess in the, they have the yugas, the Hindus, the Sat Yuga. We're in the Kali Yuga, which is the last one, but seems to be moving quite swiftly along that line. But in the Sat Yuga, everyone loved each other, everyone had a job. Everyone, I mean, the ruler, the king was devoted to his subjects to make their lives better. It's hard to imagine. But I think endemic to the human condition is this battle to recognize we are not that thing. Like the ego as a master is a motherfucker, right? But as a servant, pretty good. Allows us to take the initiative to do something for somebody else.
Yeah, allows us to move our love around. It's like the car that we can put our love in, but it shouldn't be the driver.
Yeah, exactly. So, but doing that switch is extraordinarily difficult.
Because the ego is grappling and wrestling to be the driver.
Fear. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, what's going to save us is our mothers, is women. Compassionate mothers bringing up children is going to save us, okay? And you had one of those mothers. So now you have a large responsibility, Aubrey.
And I've felt that. And I've always felt like I was never doing enough. And maybe that's because of some dharmic thing that was, from, an existence of my soul that's, whatever. Or maybe it was just the fact that I had one of those mothers, whatever, however you want to frame it. But I have felt that. I have felt this kind of like, well, fuck, I got these skills and this mom, like, I better do something great. But then I can get lost in the self-judgment of, I'm not doing enough, when the whole game is not about what I'm fucking doing, it's about who I'm being.
Yeah, but you're not, like, now, we're having this conversation, which is part of, like, when your mother first loved you like this, right? Yeah. This is a continuum till this second.
Yeah.
And you're not taking so seriously the fact that I'm not worthy, I did this and that and the other. I'm
not
bad,
anymore.
bad, right?
Not anymore.
It's like Ram Dass talks about it. I haven't, in the movie, right, his old Harvard professor friend says to him, Dick, you haven't changed at all, when he had become Ram Dass. And Ram Dass laughs and says, eventually in the movie, I still have the same neuroses that I had when I was young, all the way till now. All this work I've done on myself, they're still there. But now they're little schmooze, right?
Yeah.
They're not, the ego is backed off enough so it does not have control to make these things so horrific that, for some people, they can't even live.
Sure.
Right? And for others, it's just a day-to-day fight. And then you've got that, if you got that ineffable thing to trust that there is something else, then you do the work, whatever it may be for you, to open up and be able to be of some help to somebody.
Yeah. Let's talk about power again for a little while, because you've seen these stories of someone who seems like they have, and I don't want to cast my judgment on things that I don't really know, but you hear a lot of stories of gurus, or even if you look at the story of Osho, it feels like there was a corruption of power. It feels like somehow power infiltrated and somehow power corrupted that kind of beneficent sense of loving and serving. And you see this repeated over
in
and
every
over.
tradition.
In every tradition. And I think all of us have to grapple with that. Even my spiritual mentor, Don Howard, who used the plants he served, Wachuma, he was a Wachumero from the Shavin tradition of thousands of years ago, revived that, served it for 50 years, recently passed this year as well. And he would always talk about, like, all of us have to grapple with power will present itself to us, and we have to face it. And then we have to decide whether we're going to engage the path of power or whether we're going to stick to the path of service and love. And it's the choice of somebody or nobody, and just that thing. And it's interesting in my journeys, you can really feel it when power's there. And it's like a strong drug. It's like syrupy and it's thick and it pulses like the bass of music. And it's like, and it feels good for a minute, and then you're like, oh, no. But you can feel it kind of coming on.
But there's even way subtler ways in which it manifests. That's kind of gross. You feel that thing and you're like, what the, no, forget that, and you can easily do a turnaround. But then
maybe not even so easily though, because it's like a drug. It's like you've just gotten a little bit of heroin and you're like, do I want to keep doing heroin? And you're like, well, it's fucking heroin. Like it feels good, but no, and unfortunately in my encounters, I've been able to be like, no, I'm like, not that I haven't gotten lost I think where you're going is the subtle parts of power where you're just subtly tasting, just sipping a little bit unconsciously.
You run a company.
Sure.
You have many employees. And sometimes maybe you're walking through the halls or whatever, encountering people, however. And maybe that day somebody ticked you off in the morning, so you're not you're wrestling with yourself a little bit. And you're more identifying with the boss and all of the ought to, I should be, this, that, and the other. And then you might have been, you probably never do this, Aubrey. I'm talking about myself, okay?
I probably have. Whatever you're going to say, I'm sure I have.
Being slightly dismissive, say, in a moment to a person, right?
Of course.
And that creates polarization, separation, that person, you, inside yourself, the whole thing. So it's something that happens day to day, and that's why mindfulness practice is a good thing. So we can at least be in touch with our motivations on a consistent basis. But it can't be from you just dismissed with that person, you shit fuck, what's wrong with you? It cannot be that.
No.
We are doing that all the time.
Yeah. The real mindfuck is actually not even the harsh use of power, the tyrannical use of power, which is very blatant, right? The tricky one, which I had I had a lot of time in the darkness, obviously, and so like really exploring the ways in which power can be given through magnanimity, like through gifts. I gave you this thing, and I can pretend to myself that I'm giving it as a selfless act. But really, there's some element of power of like, you owe me now. Exactly. And there's some part of me that's like, you owe me now.
How about manipulating through tone of voice? Let's get really down now to subtle levels, okay?
Oh, man!
Gee, I've missed you. You haven't been here in some time. And there's an expectation. There's something that's needed from that person in some fashion. So there's a tone that you watch your tone that's like, it's like, throw a little bit of honey here, and you see that. You see it going in the air, and oh my God.
And in relationships too, especially so. And then you dangle something like a sexual experience that you really want. And then you try to ride your truth through that whole thing, and you're intoxicated by your desire. And, I do my best now through all the awareness practices. I do my best to ride the truth through the thing, but I can catch myself in like little ways in which I'm manipulating reality to get the result that I'm looking for. Not in a kind of diabolical way, but subtle ways, and it's just like, whew. Like how to ride, how to keep awareness, like ride with awareness the whole time. And I think that's a great thing about Ram Dass is just loving what you see, not judging it, because that resistance is just going to cause it to accelerate. It's going to compound it. You're going to have guilt, and then you're going to have to deal with the guilt, and you're going to have to go on this thing. But just the awareness, and be like, oh, okay, I see that. You really want this sexual experience. This is the thing that be aware of that, love that. Let's maybe change course.
It's just okay. You're okay. When I said at the beginning of this podcast, I mentioned at some point what Ram Dass brought back, because we were talking about community, satsang, and the way that he blended that with family, because he was thrown into an Indian family is so far different from our families, not even funny. And so I said further in that little post that I did, so he brought all of that, all of the wisdom, the love, all of that. But I said the one thing that was the hugest difference maker for me was the fact he brought back, it's okay. You're okay. Because he was so honest with himself in public about himself, all of his foibles. When I first listened to it, that time in the studio, when I first met him, and by the way, the post I did I somehow had a picture of us taken. So it's the first day I met him in the radio station, which is kind of cool. It was him saying, it's okay, you're human. We are human. We are going to make mistakes all the time. We are going to have selfish intentions all the time. We are going to have dark thoughts. We are constantly, when can I get my needs met? It's okay. And in that okay, to me, you just talked about awareness, keeping that awareness going. You got to have that okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Not to the point where you're using it, like bypassing to fuck people, okay, which can happen as well. You got to be honest. And how do you get that kind of honest is practice.
Because if it's not okay, you're not going to look at it. Because the penalty that you'll give yourself, the denial of your own love, the punishment that you'll give yourself will cause the subconscious blinding to what you're doing, so you'll be out of awareness.
Yeah.
Until you get to the point where you can love your dark thoughts and love your selfishness. And like you said, not use that as an excuse, because that's another manipulation of that. But if you don't have that awareness and that love and that forgiveness, you'll be blind. You will blind yourself.
Well, you'll have a very difficult life altogether, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, people, and I'm sure people that are listening, and I know people who listen to Mind Rolling, my podcast, they can get very tired of too many big exultant expressions of the spiritual path. Big ideas that seem beyond the capability of anybody to really embody, right? But the reality is, if you just get a little bit of trust in that intuitive place inside ourselves, that you are going to get presented the kinds of things that are going to support it's okay. I want that awareness because I don't want to keep hurting myself and other people. So I want to change. And usually that comes, with a bunch of suffering. That's how we change, or, in my case, when I was a kid, I just couldn't understand what was going on. It was horrible, It was the society and the culture, it was the expectations, it was nuts. So just a little bit of trust, in our intuitive process allows us to be able to have that awareness and pursue it, because we, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, my only religion is kindness. So if we can't be that, so that's what I mean, all kinds of highfalutin terms and spiritual terms and around mindfulness and all of that. Yes, it is good to learn mindfulness. It is good to have a practice. But ultimately, you got to just check in with, don't I want to be kind and give love out? As Ram Dass says in the movie, when is what I want enough? When is what I need enough? It's way more interesting to serve.
Yeah. I think I loved when he was talking about when he would look out at the day that was coming, and he would look with that curiosity, like, what does God have for me to chew on today? What are the things that are going to hook me today? What are the things that are going to hook my attentions or hook my emotions today? What will I get the opportunity to be aware of and to love? And he said that's why he moved to New York City, for example, because there was many things that could hook him and drive. And he was like, ooh, good, the fire. Like, let's go, let's steer towards that thing, because he was so dedicated to his freedom. Yeah. And so if you're dedicated to your freedom, you can't avoid the things that are going to actually hook you. You can't go, if you're dedicated to the freedom, you can't go to the monastery where everything is, you're isolated. Then you're Buddha back in the palace walls rather than Buddha out there in the world actually becoming truly free, and like, so dealing with your sexual desires and dealing with your, monetary desires and your comfort desires and all of these different things is like, all right, this is my opportunity to practice this loving awareness and release of attachment to the things that are really trying to hook me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
What were the things, knowing Ram Dass, what were some of his like Achilles heels? Where were the areas what were the things that hooked him as a human being? You know, the things that, like, for him, he would get a little hooked by, like, I think we all have our own special karmic, things that just get us a little easier. Just hook us a little easier. Did he have those things?
Well, particularly after the stroke, he hated having people to have to help him. He used to say, I wrote a book, how can I help? Now I need a book, how can you help me? And so he got caught in that place a lot over the time, because, like, he gave it up more and more in the last couple of years, I could tell. But if there was, pick up something, he could only use one arm, right? And you'd go to pick that up he'd look at you like, sit down and shut up. And he'd go and he'd do whatever he had to do to get that blade and bring it, or whatever the hell it was. So that was an Achilles heel. The thing, I am the helper. I am the guy. You're not the guy, even after the stroke. So he had to go, and I would say to him, so you really don't want me to help you here, don't you? I would jive him about it because, God knows how much he jived me in my whole life about everything else.
Well, he tells those similar stories, like the story with his aunt, like where I think it's a very common thing where people. It's very vulnerable. It's very challenging to be helped, totally. And how at the final years, she just released, and she was comfortable with him, exactly. Like taking care of her, taking her to the bathroom, washing her, wiping her, doing the whole thing. Yeah, and that's a very difficult lesson. Very difficult.
But I mean, in this case, you're asking. He didn't have a lot of stuff. Okay, he had far less stuff than most of us.
Of course, he dedicated his life to freedom.
Yeah. So, but that was still there. It is a normal thing, right? As you get into a dependent part of your life, that people help to take care of you or help take care of you. And people have many different kinds of reactions to that. And that was one that he was still working through. So,
how did he wrestle with lust? Because you read a lot of the old texts, and this is like one of those things. And even especially, Hindu texts, different spiritual texts, lust is like one of those things where a lot of spiritual traditions, they just push that aside. Like, no. Like, don't even fucking engage with that because that's too sticky.
And that's what they do in India. They put on ochre robes and are very,
nobody can, in Buddhist tradition, nobody can touch no female can touch a Buddhist monk. It's like they don't even want to engage it because they're like, this is too fucking sticky.
Okay, so I'll give you one example of that. I mean, the reality as far as Ram Dass was concerned, he was like all of us. He was dealing with it in the most conscious manner he could possibly do that. And obviously after his stroke, that all changed. And then that was not the kind of problem it had been before.
Sure.
For just obvious reasons, being paralyzed, half paralyzed. But yeah, this thing look what's happening in our culture. I mean, recently a major Buddhist organization went completely kaput, and as a result of some sexual malfeasance by the leader. And how many times has that happened in our? I mean, it's like left and right,
all over the place.
And it is true. That, the Hindus say, even a sage can be beguiled by one of those beautiful Apsara goddesses that come down and try. Buddha got, he got one too. He got some beautiful women trying to get him out of his samadhi and so on. But he's Buddha, so we can depend on him. But there are... when you say guru, which means, a pointer of the light or opener of the light, guru, whatever that is, But they're more teachers, most of them, because they haven't gone the beyond where they're the not two. They are not doing that. So there's very few gurus that are beyond this issue that we're talking about, lust. It's the biggie. It's the biggie, right?
Seems like it to me.
Yeah, it seems to be. It is the biggie. I recently met somebody in India, a yogi, 25 years in caves, and the kind of austerity that isn't really done these days much anymore. And he seems to come out the other side. He was he embraces women without fear. Okay? And I never saw quite somebody like that who did that. I mean, it's extraordinary that somebody seems to have broken through. It is so rare, though. It is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So, we are going to, Aubrey, till that last breath. I'm thinking we're going to be in it, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Like, you're young. You got it. I kept thinking as I got older now that would go away. No. I had lunch once with my 85-year-old father, and I'm sitting there having lunch with him in a restaurant, and there's people walking around, and I'm telling him something, and suddenly his eyes start doing this. He's following somebody across the thing. I turn my head, and it's a beautiful woman. I go, Dad, now? Is this what I'm looking for? This is what I'm looking for at 85? If I ever make it to 85? Yeah, so lust.
It's there. And I think it's... So I
Greed,
guess it's the
lust,
same thing.
attachment, and desire. Kam, krodh, moha, loha is the four things that they, you'll sit down from and say, okay, you got to get through those.
Yeah.
But again, beating oneself to death in a cave is not going to do it, okay? Mm. And perhaps being, it's just, as you said before, awareness.
Yeah.
We've got to bring that to the table, and we got to develop it in a way it's not a judgmental awareness. That's why I love Ram Dass's I am loving awareness from deep inside.
Loving awareness of his lust, loving awareness of his
and you're embracing it. You're not pushing it away.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not also, going... Indulging it, and then you are, and it's okay, I did that. Maybe I needed to get through that. But kind to oneself, compassion and kindness.
Attachment is, and I know we'll wrap this up here pretty soon, but attachment is another one that's really tricky, because I think what I noticed in myself is one of the things that was keeping me from my happiness and keeping me from love and keeping me from enjoying this life was the knowledge that I had to let it go. And so there's a protection mechanism that comes in and says, no, you got to die. You got to let it all go. So just don't quite love it so much. It won't be so painful when it leaves. And that's fucked up. I don't want that. I want to love it fully, and it's going to go anyways.
Yeah.
It's going to go either way. So you either are living a life protecting yourself from the inevitable, or you actually really live your life and live it in a way that it's so full that you can go smiling to the beyond.
Yeah. It's in the movie Becoming Nobody, which you said, by the way. You gave us that wonderful quote. This is like, especially if you're going through stuff, this is something you can watch repeatedly to bring you back into, especially the part about death, which is what you're talking about right now. I mean, unless you fully embrace the impermanence of life, you can't live fully to fulfill your dharma of everything you're supposed to do in this life and everything you're supposed to be for everybody around you. So embracing it is extraordinarily important and very difficult, because the idea, oh shit, no body? I mean, you get it on acid, you look down, oh fuck, there's no body? What? I had a trip, this is really, we're on a podcast and I'm forgetting about it. I had a trip of some really strong acid, of course, decades ago. But I lost the body. Everything went away. It's good. No problem. Then a thought came. Oh, shit. No body, no sex. And bang, gone into I skitzed out for about 2 hours.
Wow.
Into this, partially it was my friend who I went, and I said to him, because we took, it must have been like way more than anybody takes it. I'm a Czechoslovakian acid. It was at least 500 or 600 micrograms.
Wow.
I took 2. And I went to my friend and I said, you think everything's okay? He looked at me and he went, I don't know. And that was it. I was gone.
Then fear creeps in.
Yeah, right. So that has all to be dealt with. That fear of death. We are no longer going to exist because the thing we think should be existing is the thing in life that we need to understand that is not who we are. So that's the beauty of working on yourself, is to get to that place now. Not when you're 5 years away or whenever it gets sick, whenever it's then it gets difficult to practice.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciated was he gave a talk talking about the 2 ways that you can kind of get to that oneness, and it's neti, I am not that. I'm not my body. I'm not that thought. I'm not this thing. I'm not that. Or tatvamasi, I am that. I am that. So it's both ways. It's like both ways. Yeah,
but it's not
get
I am that. It's not the I am not that. It's a different that. Yeah. I am that is Shiva, Soham. I am that which is beyond duality. Okay, I am not that is I am not that which is in duality.
Right.
I mean, it's one way to say it.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's just very interesting how everything and nothing ultimately converge in the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all the one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one is the game.
Many different ways to get to the peak of the mountain, but you get there. Doesn't matter.
And that's the beautiful thing of when he was talking about the guru who doesn't care how long it takes, which allows you to love someone exactly as they are. Oh, this lifetime? Cool. Next one? Cool.
Yeah.
1,000 more?
Yeah.
That's cool.
But of course, unless you're really living some of that, it's meaningless.
Well, yeah, right.
It's an intellectualization.
Might as well fucking enjoy it. Yeah. We're all going home.
Yeah, right.
We're all going home.
Right. But to me, might as well keep thinking of the way in which we are so locked into serving ourselves, right? Getting what we want. We are so locked into that. So keep thinking about, to me, I mean, it's what I say to myself. Okay, again, I go back. When is what you need and what you want enough? That's a good mantra, I think. When is what you need and what you want enough? Enough. Stop. Is okay. Sit back a little bit.
Yeah.
And just allow some spacious awareness to come in. And then you're not, the idea of service, by the way, is as soon as you start to think of somebody else, you stop thinking about yourself. You know why I go to India every year? Because I go somewhere, I know where to go, where I can plug in and I'm not thinking about myself or the future or the past for at least, a couple of weeks. And to me, that's the refresher that we can all do in one way or another, in some ceremony or another, in some course or another, whatever. But we got to take that time, Otherwise, it's just lost in me land. Duncan and I are working on a book about this, by the way. Krishnadas has a great thing that he talks about, so I stole it from him. It's called The Movie of Me. You wake up in the morning, you're the hero, you're the villain, you're the director, you're the writer, you're the producer, and it goes on 24/7. Just watch it, and you see. So at some point you go, when is that enough? And you start to think, how do we get to the we? And you know what the we is? One small thing of what the we is like, we're just here together. you're a few feet away from me. We're eye-to-eye contact, and we're giving each other complete attention. Now, some of it's because it's a podcast and, we're being on in some way.
It wasn't too different than that lunch we had.
No, it wasn't at all. Well, we have a nice little thing going where we're free, with each other. So, but that kind of attention, that's what I got from Ram Dass when I first met him. There was nothing else. He wasn't being Richard or Ram Dass. He was being here for me, and there was one pool, okay? In that's what we need to aspire to, right? And you can just start with the attention's a big thing. You know that from all your relationship stuff that I've seen you talk about. Attention is huge, right? The most generous thing you can do in life is give someone full attention. So you just start with those little kind of things. This is not a spiritual thing, right?
Very practical, pragmatic.
Yeah, and that's what I'm into.
I love it. Can we do like a bunch more of these podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're here every once in a while in LA.
For sure.
And you got to come to Ojai, and we got to do one out there.
Yeah.
As soon as I get my studio together.
That'd be great. And sit in one of the Satsangs. Yeah. Thank you, Raghu. Thank you for your service. Aubrey. Thanks for putting everything out. Thanks for keeping, the teachings and the essence and offering your own and all your wisdom, and just deeply appreciate, the work that you and Ram Dass and Maharaji, everybody's that's contributed the whole thing. It's the thing. The thing. Appreciate the whole thing. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you too. From the minute I became aware of you, before our mutual friend Duncan, and what you're doing is just fabulous.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. All right. So anything, you got a couple podcasts you want to let people know where they can find more?
There's a Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com, and we have amazing Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, Krishna Das, Ram Dass, and I have a mind-rolling podcast where I talk to different people every week. So we have that, and we have ramdass.org if you want to get further into Ram Dass. And once you go there, you'll find a host of other lovely offerings that we do, online courses. And just sign up, get up on the Ram Dass list, and you'll hear all about it.
Beautiful.
Retreats and everything. Yeah,
awesome.
You got it. May 21, Aubrey, in Ojai, California.
Cool.
Okay, we're doing a spring retreat there.
Beautiful.
So
sounds good to me.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe. Also, share with any friend that you think might benefit from it. And lastly, go to aubreymarcus.com, sign up for my newsletter diary, and you won't miss a thing.